inappropriate social media use by council staff. And this is an issue that came up in your last committee meeting. And so and we've got a report, and I don't really want to say very much more than what is in the report, to be honest, but just a few things to sort of preface it. One is to recognise that this is a really difficult and painful conversation for many. And I really recognise that. In the report, it outlines the history that in 2021-22, there was concerns about officer use of social media raised by both the Chief Exec and the previous scrutiny committee, which were investigated and published, and anyone can read that report, which is included in the paper. There has been ongoing concern, as we know, since about whether the investigation covered the ground it needed. Oh, sorry, can you hear me? There's been concern about whether the investigation covered the ground it needed since that, and that's what was discussed in the last committee. There was a golden motion at the time to do an external investigation, which wasn't taken forward under the previous administration. And so we really recognise the ongoing concerns and also the need to build trust and move forward with this issue. And I think that has been expressed by everybody. And so we're bringing two options today. We're bringing option number one, which is to ask which is proposing that we commission an external investigator to set out, as the report says, to set out the terms of reference with input from the committee, or to not do anything. Is option number two. There is also an amendment, which we will come to. I did just want to say before we start, you start discussing this, that the paper does set out that improving outcomes for SEND children is a huge priority for us. We know that we've got lots of work to do. We are doing that work. We've talked about that at every committee that you've had, and also that our partnerships are a lot better than they were at the time. They still obviously always can be improved, and I recognise that things take time to improve, and particularly relationships do, but they are in a significantly different place, and I hope that the report sets that out clearly. So I think that's all that we wanted to say, and over to you.
Okay, thank you. So as Hannah's just informed us, we've had an amendment from Councillor Bales, which has been published and shared with yourselves. In order to consider the amendment, option one needs to be moved and then seconded, because the amendment directly relates to option one. So I propose that we move option one, and I can see that Councillor Andriuvani has seconded it. Thank you very much. And so that takes us on then to the amendment itself. So I will hand over to Councillor Bales to move her amendment.
Do we read it out? Or what do I...
Talk to it, maybe.
Oh, yes, so do you want me to read it out? Because it's published, or do I just speak?
No, just move. You need to say you're moving your amendment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll move my amendment.
Okay, thank you. And so there needs to be a seconder for that amendment. So Councillor Susan Connor has seconded that amendment. Thank you very much. So Councillor Bales' amendments has been moved and seconded, so that means that we then move on to the fourth bit of this procedure, which is to invite the officer perspective from the professional perspective on the amendment that was been submitted.
Thank you. So just to welcome the input and the suggestions, which obviously have had a lot of thought and include a lot of content which are really helpful and are really well considered. I think that the only concern from the sort of officer perspective, the main concern from the officer perspective, is that there are significant financial implications in the amendment, both in terms of resource as well as implications of the report, as well as policy implications. And so it's such that it may not have been allowable, but we did want to we're keen on transparency, we're keen on obviously contributions from the committee, the conversation that we've had. So our comment is that we were happy for it to be debated, but we do need to understand that it's on the basis that we are concerned about the potential financial implications. It's not been costed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And so then with the next part of this procedure, as we move on and as members we are able to debate this or ask questions. So, Councillor Bales, do you want to do an introduction to your amendment, or are you happy for questions and debate and comments to come forward?
I'm happy to go straight to questions.
Oh, okay. Right. So I saw Councillor Varney. So please indicate to me, and I will go around. I'll try and make sure I include you. Councillor Varney, off you go.
Thank you very much, Christine. So almost 3 years ago, I was in this room when we had the Golden Motion debate, and I voted for an investigation into the allegations at that point. And it's very disappointing that investigation did not take place at that time, because I think now, almost 3 years later, it might be harder to get to the truth of the matter. So that's really unfortunate. But, we've also heard about the expense as well. I am concerned that this investigation, if we approve it, is going to be expensive, and money will be coming from the SEND budget, which we can ill afford to spend on other things. But we did have a vote in full council. I'm not in the habit of ignoring votes in full council. So on that basis, I will be supporting option 1. I thank Councillor Bales for her amendment, but I think it's a little bit premature. I think firstly we need to decide whether or not we're going to have the investigation. Then we need to appoint a lead person to carry out the investigation, an independent person. And we need to probably, I would imagine, discuss the terms and conditions, the terms of reference, I should say, with that appointee. And then I believe the proposed terms of reference will be coming back to a future committee. At that point, I think that would be the appropriate time to debate the terms of reference and perhaps to put amendments at that time. I think probably at this point it's a bit premature. Also, Councillor Bell says one thing I didn't quite like about your terms of reference, no offence, but it didn't mention anything about politicians at the time. And I think, we can't just have an investigation that focuses only on council officers. I think it's potentially the case that politicians may have known what was going on. And if we really want to get to the bottom of this and put this issue to bed, we do need to invite politicians at the time to give evidence if they wish. Of course, that's the issue, isn't it? We can't compel anyone to give evidence. So we might never completely get to the bottom of this, and it will leave a lot of people unsatisfied, and we would have spent a lot of money as well. But we had a vote in full council 3 years ago. It was ignored by the previous administration. I don't want to ignore it today, so I support having an investigation. Thank you very much.
Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies if this sounds a bit of a repeat of what Councillor Varney has said, but I think it is important that I set out my views on this. The external independent investigation should have been carried out in 2022. That was the wish of full council, that the administration, and it was a mayoral administration, that one man or the team, whatever you want to call it, blocked that vote of full council, ignored the democratic wish of full council, is disgraceful, shameful. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've got rid of an appalling system. And I hope we never, ever go back to that mayoral system, which was such a blot and a stain on Bristol's civic character. So it should have been done in 2022. In 2025, it's going to be much harder. And I think we're going to have to be very careful with the terms of reference, because otherwise we could end up spending a huge amount of money on this. And it's money that comes out of the SEND budget, of course. So we do have to be very, very careful with what we spend. The terms of reference will have to be tightly drawn. But we do need that investigation. I have spoken to officers, and I know that they're concerned that the investigation wasn't carried out. I know parents and residents are unhappy that it wasn't carried out. It will forever be a problem, I think, unless we actually do something. So option 1, I'm happy to support. The amendment, I'm not happy to support.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Bales?
So just to come back on a few points, my terms of reference have been sense checked by parent carers, so I think it's really important to have them involved. So if officers decide on the terms of reference, obviously they're not going to be involved in that, and not specifically as they have been with mine. So I think to build on the trust, they have to be involved at every level. And I didn't vote for or against, I didn't vote at all, I didn't abstain on the original motion. So it's quite concerning that, 3 years later it hasn't happened. And the reason it didn't happen under us is because, as Christine said last time, there was legal action. So, nobody could move forward until that legal action had ended. So, I think my terms of reference would build trust with parent carers, because we have waited a very long time. And, I think whoever was involved, it would give us an answer. It would give us all closure, whether, it was done for whatever reason. We need closure on this. I think everybody needs closure, because otherwise we're just going to keep talking about this and talking about it forever and ever and ever. And, this has not only had an impact on us as parent carers, it's impacted on our children. So I think, we have to think about them as well. This has been going on for years and years and years. And, our children are also growing up with this over their head.
And Councillor Van?
Is there any reason why the motion as proposed can't involve parent carers in setting up terms of reference? Is there still opportunity for them to be involved as things stand? Was my first question. And then also you made it sound as if this is still ongoing, and is it still ongoing, and is there evidence that it's still ongoing?
The longer this goes on, the more suspicion is raised, which is why we need closure. So an investigation, it would find out that. So in my terms of reference, it says when concerns were first raised, right up until now. So if whether it has or hasn't been going on, a continuation, an investigation would find out. As parent carers, some of them want to remain anonymous, so I can't speak on their experience without identifying them. So with an investigation, they could remain anonymous. They could speak to the investigator, and whatever they disclose, whether it's historic or recent, that would be investigated.
But you don't know of any evidence that it's ongoing, because the report says that it's the culture has changed now. And do you believe the culture has changed?
Well, I was somebody that was spied on, so it's not really, I don't really want to give any information at a public forum.
I mean, we're not supposed to be having an investigation here and now, so I think we should leave that to, if we decide to vote for investigation, we should leave that to the experts. But, we just need to decide how we're going to vote. So.
Okay. Sorry, Shona.
I was only going to say that, I agree. I think it's really important to have an investigation and try and settle this as much as we can. I think there's a lot of good stuff in the terms of reference. I think there is stuff that I would like changed. As someone mentioned, it doesn't mention any of the politicians involved at the time, and that will surely be quite a key part of it. So, and I would hope that, I note that the original recommendation says that the terms of reference would be developed in consultation with us as committee members. So I would hope that a lot of these terms of reference could be brought into it, but I don't feel comfortable voting for it as it is now, considering I only saw it yesterday. I wish we'd had this conversation a couple of weeks ago to kind of being able to thresh it out and get to a stage today where it was something we were all happy with. I think there's also that balance. We don't know the exact cost of it. My understanding is that to do an investigation up to the present day is likely to be far more expensive than if we do an investigation around the period where we know there's concerns. And so I suppose we have to justify, if we're going to spend a lot of money bringing it up to the present day, we have to have reasonable confidence. We have to have some sort of reason for that to, I suppose my concern is that we don't seem to have any evidence to justify that at the moment, and that's my concern. I would love if we had enough money to just do it all and then we could all put it to bed and we never have to think about this again, but I don't feel comfortable authorising that amount of money when, from what we understand, it comes out of the SEND budget anyway. But I would really hope that we could have some follow-up discussions as soon as possible, and that most of these terms of reference could be brought into whatever the final decision is made, is my view.
Councillor Collar.
I can't speak from personal experience. It didn't happen to me. But I think as a parent, I know how I would feel if that had happened to me. And I believe that anyone out there that has that hanging over their head, that they were treated the way that it is reported, that we should be looking back and saying, what happened, what went wrong, and how can we stop it from ever happening again. So for me, obviously, I'm going to support us doing the investigation purely because it's more about prevention as well as looking back into what happened. But if we know that something was wrong, we need to fix it, we need to move on, and we need to learn and make sure that that doesn't happen again. And only finding out the truth of what happened can we actually move forward. So that's why I'm going to kind of say yes to an investigation.
And Councillor Freeman.
I think people have covered a lot of what I was going to say, and I think, you know, I'm with everybody else on this, that we obviously need to have it. I don't think there was really a question about whether we were going to have an investigation. It's how we frame that and how we make sure that the costs don't spiral, that we have a very clear scope, and we're very clear about where we draw the line, so that it doesn't creep and we don't eat into our very precious SEND budget. I think the other aspect that I wanted to raise is as an SDN parent, I've not had much to do with the Parent Carers Forum. I know that they're a brilliant advocate and a brilliant organisation, but obviously there are other stakeholders who might have an interest here, and we talk quite a lot about the Parent Carers Forum. Are there other SEN parents who perhaps aren't being heard in this debate? Can we make sure that if we are looking at parents and you know, that we are not just relying on the Parent Carers Forum to kind of represent that voice, that we are making sure that we are very clear about who we are including and why, I suppose. And I agree with Shona. I think there's some great bits in this terms of reference. I think there's other bits that we need to work on a bit more and discuss a bit more, and we need to make sure they're really tight and that we're confident that they're feasible as well, that they are, you know, that they fit within a legal framework, that they are realistic, and they actually will feed into an investigation that happens, because otherwise we will keep going around in circles and not getting anywhere. And I agree with what everybody said, that we need to progress this, and we then need to put it to bed, because we can't afford to spend more officers' time, our time, or funding on this in the future.
Okay, so doesn't appear that anybody else wishes to comment on this. I mean, I think that I echo particularly a lot of what Councillor Varney was saying. I agree with you. In some ways, these are very wide, but they're also too narrow. Certainly a term of reference in here needs to look at members of the previous administration alongside also political appointees that may have worked with that administration. I need to reiterate, such an investigation does not have any legal powers. So anybody that is contributing from outside of the organisation is doing so on a voluntary basis. And so therefore we would be looking towards the Bristol Labour Party colleagues to ensure that those members of the administration that were relevant to this, or political appointees that were relevant to this, it's going to be on you guys to get that engagement from them, because if that is not forthcoming, we're not going to get as full a picture as is possible as it will be possible to get. I agree. I mean, 3 years has passed. there will be people that have left the organisation that just will choose not to engage. So in some ways, it will be an incomplete jigsaw, regardless, because that's just the situation that we now find ourselves in, and there isn't anything that we as a committee can do about that. So I'm going to ask. We're moving on to a vote. Is that right? Yeah. Sorry,
So
I'm just doing procedure stuff now.
The next stage will be a vote on Councillor Bell's
Yeah. Okay.
amendment.
So, so we're on to number 5. So what we are now, I'm now going to ask you to vote on is the proposed amendment that Councillor Bales sent to us yesterday. So option 1 has been opened so that we are able to talk about the amendment. So it is literally just the bit about the amendment, and it's a straightforward for, against or abstention. So I'm going to ask members of the committee that are for adopting these terms of reference and the other comments into option 1 to please raise their hands. Okay, so we've got Councillor Hernchen, Councillor Collett and Councillor Bales, so that's 3 for adopting the amendment. And those that are against adopting at this present time? So that's the 6 of us.
Yes, so the amendment is lost.
So the amendment falls, okay. Right.
So just to clarify, with the amendment being lost, we now move to a vote on the original option 1 as per the report.
Okay. Okay, so we now need to, we're now voting on the original 2 options put forward in the paper then. So can I have a raise
Sorry,
of...
just option 1 to start with.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, so we're going to look option 1. So those in favour of option 1, please raise your hands. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.